Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Conscious Artist, a safe space for conversations around mental health awareness for musicians, artists, and all human beings. I am your host, Pallavi Mohidara, and I am thrilled that you are joining us today. I love the community we have developed together through this show, and I'm committed to continuing to give a platform for voices and stories to be shared. When we allow others and ourselves to feel seen and heard, we create much needed change in this industry and in this world. So thank you for supporting this community. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and let's get started. My guest today is a Hungarian flutist currently serving as the Co-Principal Flutist of the Bremerhaven Philharmonic Orchestra. But the main reason I wanted to chat with her today is for her endless curiosity and broad range of interests. In addition to being a performing artist, in the past few years, she has been working as a certified yoga teacher and meditation and breathwork instructor. Her diverse passions and skills combine art and mindfulness, enriching both her musical practice and her personal development. Please join me in welcoming Ágnes Vass to The Conscious Artist. Ágnes, I'm delighted to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much. What a nice introduction. Thank you.
Well, it is my pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I love that more and more artists are searching for a more balanced and wholesome approach to life, seeking hobbies and sometimes even parallel careers to sort of balance out the stresses and the pressures of what it takes to be quote unquote successful in this world. And actually, not just in the artistic world. We see so many people, for example, in finance that one day decide to, up and quit their jobs. They're very high pressure jobs. And suddenly they've decided to become a chef or a yoga instructor or a wellness coach. And I think it's a pretty big indication that society does not focus enough on mental and physical well-being. And I honestly feel very proud that you and so many others are turning to the practice of yoga, which is an ancient Indian practice of connecting and balancing the mind, body, and soul. And so I would love to know what drew you to the world of yoga and your decision to become a certified instructor.
Okay, yes. So I agree with all the things you said. And I have to say, my first encounter with yoga was at a very early age, almost like first encounter with flute. I had my first yoga lesson ever when I was 10 years old. We were living in Hungary and I had some pain in my belly. And I don't know how and why, but my mom took me to a yoga class. And it was not a fashion back then, but still somehow I started the connection there. And from that moment on, it was always kind of part of my life. The way I started the education, it was a bit of a special corner of yoga because I learned about Ashtanga yoga maybe 3 years ago. Then I discovered something I didn't knew before. And then I knew like at some point it's helping me so much. It's such an intense thing to do and it helps me so much mentally to focus, to deal with difficulties, to be physically strong, really like as if you do strength training or I don't know. So I felt such a strength coming from that at that point I was checking where can I do an education in this yoga tradition, and then I found a school in Bremen and there I did my first education, and currently I'm continuing. I'm in the advanced education which I'm doing in Hamburg.
But that's incredible.
It's
No,
new.
but
It's new.
it's new in
Yeah.
terms of, I guess, doing the training, but yoga is something that's been a part of your life since you were little. And that's not so common, I would say, in the West. And that's really, really beautiful that it was something that you were introduced to at such a young age.
Yeah, so I don't know how, but I'm really lucky in this sense. Also, my aunt, the sister of my mom, became a yoga teacher back then, pretty soon. And she was, for a long time, one of the owners of one of the biggest schools of yoga in Budapest. And then she decided to move to the countryside and start a new school there. So there is a lot of mindfulness and yoga tradition in my family. It's pretty strange, I know.
That's
But
beautiful. We need more of that.
yeah, yeah, also in the older generation. And my mom is a teacher for school kids, like smaller kids, until the age of 14. And she also, as a second profession, she was already, I don't know, 55 or something like this when she entered her first yoga education. And now she's also a teacher for yoga for kids.
That's beautiful.
So there's a lot in the family.
But I think it's so important and so necessary. As I said, as artists, and we're not the only ones, but as artists, we have to deal with a lot of pressure, whether it's internal and self-imposed pressure or it's external pressure through jobs, through colleagues, through competitions, if you're in school. There's so much, and we don't always know or learn. We're not taught how to manage those emotions. We're not taught how to balance and take care of ourselves in a healthy way so that we don't burn out, that we don't get physical injuries, so that we don't become depressed or have crippling anxiety. This is becoming more and more of a staple in people's lives, that they are seeking balance, they are seeking mental and physical well-being along with whatever success they are searching for in their careers.
Exactly. And also what you say makes me think of this topic of internal and external pressure. I think that after our education, what we had as a child or young professional, it also takes such a long time to really be able to separate what is internal and what is external pressure. Because a lot of things we get by our teachers or by the school system or competition system or audition system, and we internalize that pressure. So what I found through yoga, for example, also to go back through really what I really want, what is my emotional connection to flute playing or music playing, which is not connected to if I win an audition or not, or if I am in this orchestra or that orchestra,
Right.
like this connection to the music without the influence of the external world, like this very intimate connection, which is for all of us, it's why we started this probably. I mean, I don't think that any one of us started at the age of 4 because we wanted to win a competition. We
No.
most likely started because we had fun or we loved it or music was just speaking to us like nothing else. And that's what we actually should like really take care of the older we get also.
I couldn't agree more. For me, my journey into letting go or trying to let go of, all the external pressure and external noise was through therapy. And I've talked about this a lot on my podcast, but going to therapy and actually like doing the psychological analysis. I mean, I am very much of an
Yeah.
overthinker. So it was
Me too,
like,
me too. Don't worry, me
me
too.
going to therapy, like with my notebook, what's my homework for this week? What do I need to analyze this week? But it really helped because it was like little by little unlearning so much of what I thought I had to be,
Yeah.
what I thought I was supposed to be, or what I was supposed to think, or how I was supposed to play, or what I'm supposed to do. And, just, I mean, I don't know. I'm curious to know what you think, but I feel like it's also part of it is also just simply getting older and, being well into my 30s. I'm just like, I don't care anymore. Like, you don't like what
Yeah.
I'm doing? That's cool. You live your life, I'll live mine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. But it's not so easy. I think this comes, I mean, yeah, two topics. Like I also did a lot of, consulting or therapy or whatever you call it, when I had very different stages of this. So, for example, when I was auditioning around 25 or at the age more or less 25, then I started to realize that anxiety can really make my performance much worse. So I consulted a sports psychologist back then
Mm.
from Hungary, And we did really like very rational and very sportive exercises for the mind, for me to, just stand there and play no matter what.
Can you tell me, like, what, for example, were some of the exercises? I'm really curious.
So some main concepts which I still remember, because it has been more than 10 years, let's admit. So one of these was like we made a plan for many weeks how I'm going to practice. And she always spoke about, for example, if you're a high like professional sport man, woman, then you don't need to have peak performance all the days of the week. So if you do like one or two really, really good trainings per week, then it's good enough.
Hmm.
And the rest of the day, you have to show up, and maybe someday show up anyway, even if you are deadly tired, like do then 30%, but do something. And then in another day, when you feel that your energy is really high, then do your peak performance, and just don't expect yourself to have the peak every day. So that was new to me back then because I was
Right.
struggling, playing the things every day by heart and everything without mistakes, and every corner of crescendo, diminuendo, cleaned, and like when somebody who's coaching like really successful competitors in another field tells me like just treat it as a normal life, and treat the day where you actually have to play also like a normal day, like an audition. Like the more normal you think this day is, the higher probably your performance is going to be, because the more you
Hmm.
think that you need to do the very, very best that day, the more you can actually sabotage yourself. But it depends on what field we are in, because I think when you actually need speed or something, like really adrenaline put directly into something, then it can help. But for the flute playing, I
Maybe
mean,
not.
too much adrenaline can actually destroy your breath, or feel your body way too stiff or tense. So for me, it was helpful to loosen up, and also to see the period of preparation more in weeks, where I see what do I want to achieve in a week, where do I want to be in 1 week, and then in 2 weeks, and then in 3 weeks, and see that some days are like really good peak days, and some days when they are just normal, that I can go to bed in peace and sleep well.
Yeah, this is so important because as musicians, we often either taught or we think that it has to be quote unquote perfect every time, although there is no such thing as perfect.
Yeah.
And we often, let's say we're working on a passage and we finally get it, and then we think, okay, now we've learned it. Now we have it in our fingers. Now we have it in our brain. Now we have it in our voice, whatever, the instrument. And then the next day, it sounds like shit.
Yeah.
Then we feel like, well, what was the point of what we did? Or we obviously didn't do it well enough, or we don't know it. And then we start to question and doubt our abilities or ourselves as people.
Yeah.
It just goes in this horrible negative spiral. There's so much research with sports psychology in terms of how it helps to benefit and enhance a performance. And it's so applicable to music, but there's so little research and
Yeah.
sort of interest in music psychology or performing arts psychology, could we say?
Yeah. And one other thing, I mean, she was very experienced, so it was for me so easy also to be led by somebody who doesn't question every step she makes. you know so when we are alone practicing, then for me, since I'm also an overthinker, let's say, it's a lot of time like, is it really good what I'm doing? Like, is it or should I do it another way? Or like, I have to practice really to make a decision and stick to it, or just like be easy with if it's different every day. And back then, when I was auditioning at that age, it helped me so much that this sports psychologist was very experienced in her field. And she was like, this is like this. You don't have to think. I thought about this for you. So you just do what I say. It was also
Mm.
very helpful that she was really an expert of her field. And with her about the techniques, because actually before I didn't say a concrete technique, she introduced me to autogen training. I don't know how this is in English. Like when you go with your attention, it's like a very detailed body scan.
Okay.
You close your eyes and you go with your attention through your whole body, and
Mm-hmm.
then you relax, like you relax your fingers, your elbow, your arm, and you say yourself like, I relax this and that and that and that. And then with that sensation you go again through your whole body. You try to feel a sense of warmth, and then a cool sensation. So you exercise feeling differently by conducting how you feel. And it helped me a lot. I practiced this a lot back then. And also before auditions and before the nights of auditions, like the night before, to sleep better. Basically, I was practicing this every day. Before I practiced even that, yeah, because she also told me like, look at the quality of your practice, not just in the terms of result, but in the terms of how you feel while you practice. Like with what kind of thoughts you have towards your practice. Like if you feel that it's an obligation that you have to do it, if you fear that if you don't do it it's gonna be bad. So like work on your feelings to have as much positive as possible towards your practice. This was also something she gave to me.
This is so important. And, I talk about this with my students. I have conversations with my colleagues and my friends about this today. But again, like you're telling me this was something you were working on with a sports coach 10 years ago. This has been part of the sports world for so long, and we're just getting started in the music world with this. But I love what you said. I love what she told you, basically allowing you to be able to sleep peacefully at night, whatever you've done that day. That's so important that we are essentially kind to ourselves, that we give leeway to the simple fact that we are human beings and that it is going to
Exactly.
be different every single day and we're going to feel differently every single day. And as an athlete, that's kind of a very obvious thing, that like if you're tired, you can measure it. You cannot run as fast, or you cannot, if you're playing football, you cannot kick the ball as far, maybe if you're extra tired, right?
Yeah.
Whereas as musicians, we say, yeah, okay, I'm tired, but I'm not really, exerting so much physically, so I should be able to do XYZ. And that's completely false, because we are like athletes. I mean, you as a wind player, you're literally using your breath. If you're tired, of course that's going to affect your breath control and your breath capacity, right?
Yeah, another concept I liked very much, this concept of willpower,
Mm.
because with in my education or maybe my temperament or where I come from, for me the answer to many things was willpower. And she also told me, and one other coach later on also told me that we have to be careful with this, because when I, for example, I have an audition preparation phase, like 4 weeks or I don't know, 3 weeks or whatever, depending on where and what repertoire. And during this time, I use willpower for everything. So I try to eat very clean. I don't drink sugary or alcoholic things. Or then I have a very disciplined schedule to practice and all these kind of things. Then it can really take away the lightness in you. And she was always like, willpower is not the ultimate answer to everything in the world. Like, just also there, you don't have to do all the time 200%. You can just go back to 80 maybe, and another day better, but just be all the time kind and very forgiving to yourself if you have the tendency to use willpower too much, let's say. Of course, if you are super lazy, then you need some more willpower.
Right. But I guess it goes back to balance, right?
Exactly, it's about balance.
Yeah. I'm sensing some similarities between us and what you're saying. I also have that tendency to be very, very disciplined in certain moments, but I take it to an extreme where then after I'm done with everything, whether it's a really big concert, a series of concerts, or a tour, or in the past, many, many years ago when it was competitions. And then I would need a break and I would just stop playing for a couple weeks. And I never feel guilty about taking time away from piano. Like when I have a holiday or when I want to take my holiday or I don't have a piano, I never feel guilty about it. And I think that's healthy. I think it's a good thing.
Perfect.
However, what I don't think is healthy is the need to completely shut off that part of myself because I've gone too far on the other side of like working too hard. And so I'm still searching for a more balanced approach, sort of long term. I think I've gotten better at balancing my everyday life, my sort of day to day life. I will listen to my body. If I feel more tired that day, I'll take it easy. Let's say I'm home, in between travels or whatever. Maybe I feel really motivated and I want to start my day with a workout because that's going to give me a lot more energy than just going and sitting at the piano, stretching
Mm.
my body, exercising it, doing strength training, doing Pilates, doing yoga, whatever it is, moving my body, clearing my mind, getting my muscles warmed up and limber. That's going to aid greatly in the success of my practice that day. And
Yes.
success means, what is the quality of it? Am I focused? Am I engaged? Like I love what you said earlier. What is the quality of your practice? What is your mindset in your practice? Are you feeling like it's an obligation? And yeah, some days it is. Some days I don't want to practice and I really need to sit my butt down on the piano bench and practice because I have to learn something or I have to memorize something or I just need repetition. Sometimes we need that.
Yes.
And I would much rather be out for a walk or, hanging out with my friends or, I don't know, going to see a movie or something. Of course. I think searching for those sort of day-to-day balances has become easier. I've gotten a lot better at like listening to my body. What do I want to eat today? Am I craving something warm and nourishing? Am I craving something light, like a salad? Do I need more water? Am I dehydrated? Do I need just like fruits and
Yeah.
veggies? Those things I think I'm getting better at, but I don't know, I
Yeah.
still struggle with sort of when I have a period of a lot of work, maybe a couple months in a row where I'm just traveling nonstop and I'm just going, 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 going. And then finally I have a moment to take a break. And then of course I get sick because that's a moment when my body is like, okay, it's time to stop now. Like we're done.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What's been your experience with that?
I just have two thoughts on what you just said to your shut off. What you said that sometimes you just have the need to take weeks long breaks or so. I think I have a very yogic thought to that because I say in my yoga classes, I mean I learned like this and I heard it in many other yoga classes too, that there is this famous final relaxation in every yoga class, and we use where you don't move at all and you don't do anything, you just try to be like as passive as you can and you just let yourself sink into the ground.
Shavasana.
Shavasana, exactly. And that's where we say that the effects of what you did before, all the effort you gave, arrives in the body then. And then it actually, if you don't give yourself that break of doing absolutely nothing, then you cannot really process all the efforts you made before. So for the brain, it works too. And for the body also, I mean, the muscles also grow during the break, not during the training. So everything, I think it's very, very healthy to look at a learning process in these terms. Like there is the period of effort and the period of a break where all the effort can actually arrive on deeper levels in us. That's how I see it. So I would say don't feel bad about taking longer breaks.
So basically, I can look at my entire life as my yoga practice and then my
Yeah.
breaks as my 3-week shavasana. I like that. We'll go
Yeah,
with that.
this is already balance. I
I
mean,
like it.
we are all musicians, mostly emotional, very like highly emotional people, and also like we can activate ourselves in a very special way, I find. And I do think that it needs the counterbalance. And it's also part of our education that we feel kind of guilty when, oh my God, I had now 1 week break of the flute and I don't even miss it. Oh my God. But actually, we can get back much more fresh and we can realize some progress much better when we took a proper break, in my opinion. But yeah, I know the first couple of days when we restart practicing, it's always like, okay, my body needs that continuity. I know. But yeah, this obligation that some days it's okay to have an obligation to practice, it's true. But sometimes also we can examine our relation to that obligation. So is it painful for me, or it's just an obligation and I'm relaxed about it? Like I don't feel highly motivated, but I'm fine with having an obligation, so I do it. But if I feel like extremely lot of resistance, then what is it?
With
Why?
doing it.
Like, can I solve it
Yeah.
somehow, or am I going to practice against that resistance? That's a tricky thing. Sometimes it doesn't help. But yeah, every day is so different.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And like the thing of obligation, it's very interesting because it's like something that I've been really working on over these last couple years. I saw a post on Instagram by a therapist that I follow, and she said, I reposted it on my story actually, and she said, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, and what I like about that is essentially, are we truly both engaged and motivated and excited? Are we really wanting to do the thing that we are doing? And there are going to be circumstances like doing taxes, for example, where no one probably wants to do their taxes unless you're a tax accountant. But like, we have to do it. And sometimes those things will be there. We will have certain obligations in life that we have to just sort of like sit and bear it and do it. But when it becomes a thing of like internal conflict, let's say we said yes to playing a certain concert or a certain piece or doing something that we feel this like internal resistance against, then yes, I think we do need to examine, are we overextending ourselves? Did we say yes to something because we felt obligated to say yes? Because if we said no, maybe they won't call us again. Or maybe we said yes because we want to do it, but actually we don't have the physical or mental or emotional capacity to do more than we're already doing. And I think those are the places where we can like listen to our body, listen to ourselves, kind of re examine what we're feeling in that moment, right?
Yes. And if I listen to this now and I can lead the topic over to my job, which is playing in orchestra, I think that this is something what you kind of have to accept if you work in an orchestra, that it's
Mm.
not going to be all the time like I want to play this piece or I want to play that day and not that day. You know, it's there is a lot of things you have to accept because you said yes to probably a full-time job, or I don't know, mostly it's a full-time job. And this is also and then a challenge to make your peace with that you're not anymore so much in charge all the time of what you play and with whom you play. And I mean, I love my job and I love my colleagues, but it's a challenge you don't see before, that you are not anymore so much in charge of the whole. And I think this is something, for example, missing from our education. If we think of our, I don't know if you can relate, because as a pianist, you probably are more free in this sense.
Well, it's actually, I mean, it's not that I can't relate, it's that I am consciously aware of choosing to do my career as I'm doing it because I value autonomy.
Yeah,
Because I need, for myself, I need to be able to make my own decisions for the most part.
yeah,
In the few times that I have maybe worked in a situation where I was answering to someone else, and this is not, I mean, I sound like I'm not a team player. By no means am I saying that I can't be a team player. It's not that. I like when I'm playing chamber music, for example, I love being able to share the responsibility with everyone,
Yeah.
being able to like bounce ideas off, knowing that it's not always going to be quote unquote the way I might like playing that phrase, but I'm going to learn something from someone else. And if maybe it's really just a huge clash, that's still a learning experience, you know?
Yes, yes.
But in terms of like having an autonomous job, being self employed, being my own boss, I have come to understand in my life that that is important to me. I continue to design my life in the way that I can keep that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Sounds very good.
But what you're saying actually reminds me of something that I learned from my therapist, which is having both free will and responsibility.
Yes.
As human beings, we have both free will and responsibility, and we have the free will to choose our responsibilities, and it is a responsibility to have free will.
Yes.
What I mean by that is like, yes, maybe as an orchestra musician, you don't have day to day autonomy over all of the choices that you want to make, whether it's repertoire or, you know, interpretation or phrasing. But you and others, for example, or me, if I were in orchestra, we made the decision to go into that job.
Exactly.
That was a free will choice to choose that job, that lifestyle,
Exactly.
right?
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And I think that this free will and the responsibility part is something we learn during the years passing in the orchestra. So, not even the first year or the second, because first you are examined by all your colleagues if you can stay. And then the second or third year, maybe you are just so relieved that you have a job for your life that you just enjoy whatever comes along. And these are very beautiful moments. But I think after some years, you realize what it means, this responsibility and this free will, what you that you chose to live this life. Because in my experience, how I felt or how I went through it, I felt that during the music education, like in university or even youth orchestras, this moment of winning an audition and having a fixed job is presented to us like this happy ever after moment where the romantic movies end, and then
Right.
you arrive there and then everything's going to be fine, and then you're going to be one of those who have a job and one of those very few who can earn their life as an orchestra musician. And of course we are so passionate about it that we are actually not very, I think that we are emotionally not prepared for that moment when it comes after some years that and now this is my life and I'm just doing this every day, like day in day out I sit here and I play all these notes, and
Right.
it can feel surprising that this happy ever after is also just a normal everyday life. And it can come together with a sense of guilt that, I should be happy because there are so many people who don't have what I have and want to have what I have. So who am I to even be unsatisfied? And these are complicated feelings which there is no support system for this, basically, because you are not anymore in an education system where you can just tell your teacher like nah. But you are like a grown up person, very often feeling alone with this struggle, because you also don't want to tell this to your colleagues because you want to keep the, I don't know,
Well, you don't want to seem ungrateful for what you have.
also, and you want to stay motivated. So if you have one unmotivated day, you don't want to tell immediately that I'm unmotivated, and then it goes on and it can turn into a longer period. And this is one of the things where I think that the music education could be also focusing on, like, you better be a stable human being, because just getting what you want is not enough after, like, then you have it and you have to keep on living day by day as a stable human being. It's not so easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, society also like teaches us this whole thing what you said about like sort of happily ever after, you get a job and then you set for life. this is also society sort of molding us to believe that in order to be successful, we need to have a steady, financially secure job. And as I've gotten older, especially in these last couple years, I've come to understand, I mean, it goes so much deeper than that. Life for me is about choices and priorities. Both choices and priorities come from our values.
Yeah.
And for me, I have learned for myself that I value autonomy more than I value financial stability.
Yeah.
So I have literally chosen a job that is not financially stable. I make it as financially stable as possible, right? Whether it's my manager who's finding me concerts or I'm seeking them, like I make sure that I have work consistently so that I am earning, I have savings, whatever it is. Like I make sure that I am not in a situation where I have no money. But at the same time, I need that external, both internal and external stimulation and almost like pressure
Yeah.
to keep going and to be motivated in order to thrive. I thrive on that. I need that spontaneity, which is very, very, very funny to me that I'm saying this out loud to you right now, that I need this spontaneity in my life. And I feel like I'm one of the most like sort of square in the box, draw inside the lines. Everything needs to be planned and organized. And yet I've chosen like the most unstable profession.
But these things sometimes are controversial in us, I feel, because I also love freedom a lot. Like I absolutely need to experience some freedom every day, some a sense of I don't just do what I have to do. But at the same time, first of all, I'm orchestra musician because I love the orchestra repertoire and playing the flute in this bigger context. But at the same time, I also need this kind of stability. Maybe it comes from being a foreigner in every country, but I can absolutely value that and look for the freedom in also my practice, also my yoga practice, and maybe playing on at other places, being guest here and there, playing chamber music, this kind of stuff. Yoga helps a lot in this sense of freedom, I have to admit.
Yeah, I was thinking it must. And it's, I don't know, it's just, it's, I mean, nothing is like one way is not right or wrong. It's just so interesting how simply how we are as humans.
Yeah.
This has always been the way that I need this artistic freedom. And I don't feel that internal need for absolute financial stability. Whereas, like, my younger sister, was totally the opposite. Early on, she could have been a musician. I think she saw the amount of struggles that I had to go through. And she was like, no, you know what? I'm going to go the financially stable route. And she's a banker,
Oh, wow.
um,
Quite the
you know,
opposite.
quite the
Yeah.
opposite. But she, still plays music. She still plays cello, and she finds her creativity in other ways. She sings beautifully and plays music, just for fun. And I think it's just so interesting. And I'm just like laughing at myself now, just how much I'm talking about that I need this artistic freedom. Yet in so many aspects of my life, like I get very stressed if things, like if plans are left till the last minute, or like I'm buying a plane ticket at the last minute. It's so stressful for me. Like I want things
Yeah.
organized. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
it's
funny.
both together. I know this feeling. I also
Balance,
think
right?
that
Back to balance.
yeah. Yeah, and also a bit of identity. Like we like to say about ourselves, I'm like this, I'm like that, pa pa pa, but it's sometimes more fluid than that. And about this identity, I also think these two worlds of yoga and music made me think right now that as a musician, we have our identity so glued to our instrument and so unified with what we achieve, what we play, how it was, like who am I without the flute even. And I think that in terms of the stability and balance, it helped me a lot to study basically something completely new, where I was not the flute player from the beginning. And it was not like, you played here and there, so you are good and blah, blah, blah. But I just arrived in this yoga education, and I was just one like any other. And I had to start from zero all the topics like all the other people. And it was absolutely irrelevant what I achieved everything with the flute.
Right.
And it was like this sense of identity was such a new experience, that it's not the flute player here, or everybody has some other job in the beginning before they get to full-time yoga teaching if they want.
Yeah, I love that.
So this is maybe also something interesting. As a musician, we tend to focus all our personality, all our identity around an instrument and around the music we play. And it's also not the most healthy thing, I have to say.
It's a reminder that we're just so much more multidimensional than we sort of allow ourselves to be. And there's so many more layers that we can uncover and discover about ourselves and each other if we allow that.
Exactly.
Well, I could talk
We
about
are like
this.
in every topic now.
I know, I could talk about this forever with you. Thank you so much for being here, Agnes. It's been such a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for sharing your world with us and for just this really lovely conversation. I feel like although we haven't met in person like many of my guests, I feel like we connect, and I really hope that we get to meet in person someday soon, play music together, maybe do yoga
Yeah,
together,
would be
experience.
nice. Would be nice. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you all so much for listening. I am truly grateful for the support. Please share this episode and this podcast, because the more awareness we bring to mental health, the sooner we can break the stigmas around these topics, and the faster we can help make our world a healthier place. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and see you next week for another episode of The Conscious Artist.